Hey guys, welcome back to One Stop Biology. So in today's video, we are going to cover the very last topic of class 11th chapter 11, which is transport in plants. So today we are going to cover all about phloem transport. Now basically this flow is from source to sink. We'll talk about the source and sink as well, right? So say we'll take an example of sucrose, right? So what exactly sucrose is? It is the food for the plant, right? So this is transported by the vascular tissues which are part of phloem. Now these are transported from a source to a sink. Now what is a source? A source is the part of plant which synthesizes the food, right? So source is what? The part which synthesizes the food. Now what can be an example of it? Leaf. And what is the sink? Sink is the part that needs or that has to store the food. So part that needs, that has requirement of food or that is going to store the food is sink, right? Now always remember guys that the source and sink can also be reversed depending upon the season or plant's need. So basically what does it mean? It means that source can also become the sink in case of certain, you know, time of the entire cycle when leaf needs the food, so it becomes the sink, and the part which is storing the food becomes the source. Right? So basically what happens is the sugar which is stored in roots that may be mobilized to become source of food in the early spring when the tree basically buds of tree act as sink when they need energy for growth and development of the photosynthetic apparatus, right? So since the source and sink relationship is variable, the direction of movement in phloem can be upwards or downwards, and that is why we say that the direction of movement in phloem is bidirectional. It is bidirectional, and this contrasts with the xylem where the movement is always. So in case of phloem, it is bidirectional. In case of xylem, it is always unidirectional, right? Water and basically water is never stored in one place and then moved around. It is always unidirectional. It basically is absorbed from the roots and it goes to all the parts where it is required, right? It is always upwards. It is always ascending, right? Like one-way flow of water in transpiration, right? But the food can be transported in any direction depending upon the requirement. Now what happens, guys? What happens is that the phloem sap is nothing but water and sucrose. But other sugars, hormones, and amino acids are also transported or translocated through phloem. Okay, so it's not just water and sucrose, but also the other kind of sugars, hormones, amino acids, all are transported or you can say translocated through phloem, right? Now what is the theory behind, what is the mechanism behind this flow? We'll see that, right? So that is the pressure flow or mass flow hypothesis. Now, what is this mechanism? So basically, this is translocation of sugar from source to sink. And this is known as pressure flow hypothesis, right? Now, what happens here? Glucose is prepared at the source by photosynthesis. We all know that, right? So basically, in the leaves, photosynthesis is happening and glucose is being prepared there. right, in the presence of sunlight. Now it is converted to sucrose. It is after that converted to a disaccharide, which is sucrose. Now this sugar is moved in the form of sucrose into the companion cells and then into the phloem sieve tube cells. And how does it move? It moves by active transport. Remember that the plant uses energy to do this. So this process of loading at the source produces a hypertonic condition in the phloem. So what is happening is that in phloem, you are now getting high concentration of sucrose. And because of that, water starts moving from the adjacent xylem into the phloem. By what? Osmosis, right? And as this osmotic pressure builds up in the phloem, right? As soon as it starts building up, the phloem sap will move to areas of lower pressure, right? So this phloem sap, which contains water and sucrose, starts moving to areas of lower pressure, right? Now, what happens at the sink, the place where it has to basically reach, the osmotic pressure must be reduced, right? So again, active transport is necessary to move the sucrose out of that phloem sap and into the cells, which are going to use the sugar ultimately, right? Now, as sugars are removed, again the osmotic pressure decreases and the water moves out of the phloem. Right? So basically, to summarize, what is happening is that the movement of sugar in the phloem begins at the source. When sugars are loaded, they are actively transported into the sieve tube. Basically, there is a water potential gradient which starts setting up, and that facilitates mass movement in the phloem, right? Now we know that phloem tissue is composed of sieve tube cells. So these sieve tube cells form long columns with holes in their end walls, and these are known as sieve plates. These are known as sieve plates, right? So because of cytoplasmic strands which pass through the holes in the sieve plates, they form continuous filaments. So there are continuous filaments formed inside the sieve plates. Now, as the water pressure, the hydrostatic pressure in the phloem sieve tube increases, the pressure flow begins and the sap, the phloem sap, moves through the phloem, right? And in the meanwhile, what is happening at the sink? The incoming sugars are actively transported out of the phloem and it is removed as complex carbohydrates. Now again, the loss of solute produces a high water potential in the phloem and water passes out and it returns to back to xylem basically, right? So if you see this diagram as well, guys, if you see this diagram as well, what is happening here is basically this is the root. I'll just increase the size a bit so that it is clear to you. So what is happening here is basically this is the root, right? And this is the tip of stem. This is tip of stem. Now what is happening is that now from here the sugar is leaving. They are leaving sieve tubes, right? And water follows inside by osmosis, right? Again, the same is happening here as well. The turgor pressure is increasing, right? So basically, the sugar is entering the sieve tube, and because of high concentration of sugar, water is following by osmosis, right? Now, this is the phloem, guys, right? So basically, the sugar solution flows. So basically, here what is happening is this sugar solution flows to regions of low turgor pressure. Where concentration is low, basically this solution will move and it reach to places where there is turgor pressure low. And then the sugars in the root, the sugars leave sieve tubes. For what? For metabolism. For metabolism and storage. And again, water follows by osmosis. Right? So this is the entire mechanism of translocation, guys. Okay? So basically, guys, there is a simple experiment which is known as girdling. This experiment is known as girdling, through which we can just identify the tissues through which food is transported. This experiment is known as girdling, right? So basically, there are, you know, rings formed on the trunk of a tree, if you see that, right? And that is formed up to a depth of the phloem layer, but it can be carefully removed. And in the absence of downward movement of food, the portion of the bank which is above the ring, right, which is basically on the stem, becomes swollen after a few weeks. And this experiment shows that phloem is the tissue responsible for translocation of food, and that transport takes place in one direction, which is towards the root, right? So this experiment is very easy and anyone can perform it. And guys, this is all about translocation. So today we have finished the chapter 11, which is transport in plants, with the last topic, which is phloem transport, right? So I hope you understood the mechanism of translocation properly. If yes, please do like the video and share it with all your friends. And if no, if you have any doubt, please message your doubts either in comments or over WhatsApp. I have given the WhatsApp number in the description of the video. And guys, if you are new to the channel, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon to get all the updated videos that I'll be posting in the near future. Thanks for watching this video, guys. See you in the next one, where we'll be starting off with a very new chapter with the next chapter. Take care. Bye bye.